Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. We're diving deep today into some practical strategies to help you level up those English conversation skills. We're always looking for ways to help you speak better English. Today, we're going to be drawing inspiration from the Effortless English Zone YouTube channel, and specifically their video on tips for speaking better English. I think a lot of us can relate to wanting to be able to speak confidently in English, but sometimes you might feel a little bit hesitant or unsure, where to begin. Like you have this amazing tool, but not quite sure how to use it to its full potential.
Oh, yeah. I love that analogy. It's like having all the ingredients for like a delicious meal, but not really knowing the recipe to bring it all together. And I think this video does a really good job of providing that recipe, like breaking down the art of conversation into these manageable steps that anyone can follow.
Okay, so let's unpack this recipe then. The video jumps right in and starts at the very beginning. Those initial moments of a conversation, which can feel so nerve-wracking sometimes. And they emphasize something that I think is so important. They emphasize the power of a smile.
And you know what's interesting about that? It's that a smile, it kind of transcends language barriers. It goes right to our primal instincts,
Yeah.
signaling you're friendly and approachable. Think about it when somebody smiles at you. It instantly makes you feel at ease, right? Creates this sense of warmth even before a single word is spoken.
Yeah. I've even noticed that myself. Like when I'm traveling in a country where I don't speak the language, a simple smile can open so many doors. It's like this universal language everyone understands.
It is. It's the universal language of kindness, and it breaks down those walls. And I think it's especially powerful when you are learning a new language because it helps to kind of break down those initial walls of insecurity. It shows that you're open to connecting, and that can make the other person more patient.
So a smile is like our first ingredient in our recipe. What's next?
Well, then the video talks about icebreakers. Those classic conversation starters that get things rolling. And they mention things like, how are you? Or how's your day going?
Right.
And I know those can seem mundane, but I think the reason they work is because of their universality. They're safe, predictable entry points into a conversation.
I like that. So they're like a gentle knock on the door.
Yeah.
Signaling your intention to engage without being too intrusive.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they also mention commenting on your surroundings, which I always find super helpful. Like if you're at a cafe, you could say, this coffee is delicious, isn't it? Or I love the atmosphere here.
Oh, that's such a good idea. It's like an immediate shared experience. It's like saying, hey, we're both here in the space experiencing the same thing. And it's just a very subtle way of finding that common ground and inviting the other person to share in that moment.
Yeah. And of course, they bring up the classic conversation starter.
Yeah. Yes, the weather. It might seem cliche, but everyone experiences the weather. And so I think that's why it's so powerful. We can all relate to it. It's safe, it's neutral, it's perfect for those initial moments of interaction.
But it's not just about the words themselves, right? The video emphasizes the importance of delivery. Like how you say those initial phrases.
Exactly. Your tone of voice and your body language play a key role. Even just a simple hello can be infused with warmth and enthusiasm, inviting the other person to engage with you. Think about how you feel when someone greets you with like a genuine smile and a bright tone of voice.
Oh, it definitely makes a difference. It makes me feel welcome. Like the other person's actually happy to be talking to me.
Right. And that sets the stage for a much more positive, engaging conversation.
Yeah, it's like laying the foundation for a strong connection. So we have our smile, we have our friendly greeting, maybe a comment about the weather or our surroundings. What comes next in our recipe?
Well, then the video goes into the art of keeping that conversation flowing. And that's where active listening really takes center stage.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I feel like I hear that phrase, active listening, all the time. But I'm not really sure I fully understand what it actually means.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's more than just hearing the words, right?
You're absolutely right. It's about engaging all of your senses, not just your ears, but your eyes, your mind, even your heart. It's about being fully present in that conversation and absorbing not just the words that are being spoken, but the nonverbal cues, the emotions, and the message behind the words.
Okay, so it's kind of like being a detective, looking for clues.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you actually put that into practice?
Well, the video gives some great tips. And first and foremost, it's about paying attention, truly focusing on what the other person is saying. Without letting your mind wander, put your phone away, resist the urge to interrupt, just give them your undivided attention.
Yeah, I am so guilty of letting my mind wander in conversations sometimes. And so easy to get distracted these days, especially with, everything going on. But I can see how making that conscious effort to really focus makes the other person feel heard, feel valued.
Exactly. And that's how you build rapport and trust. It shows them that you genuinely care.
Yeah. They also talk about asking follow-up questions, which seems like a very natural way to show that you are paying attention.
It is. Follow-up questions are like golden nuggets.
Yeah.
They demonstrate that you're not just passively listening, but that you're actively trying to understand the other person's perspective. And it helps to keep the conversation flowing and avoid those awkward silences.
Yeah. I know that when people ask me follow-up questions, it makes me feel like they're really interested in what I have to say. And that makes me want to share more.
And then the video goes on to suggest sharing a little bit about yourself, to make sure that it's balanced and there's reciprocity.
Right. So it's about creating that back and forth, that give and take.
Exactly.
That makes a conversation feel more natural.
Like a dance.
Yeah.
Where you take turns leading and following.
Okay.
And by sharing a little bit about yourself, you're building connection and also keeping things interesting.
Yeah. And they even give some specific phrases to use, like, tell me more, or that sounds interesting. I find those so helpful because sometimes I just draw a blank. I'm like, what do I say now?
Oh, those phrases are great because they unlock more. They signal that you're eager to learn more, and it encourages that person to go a little bit deeper. So it's really like giving them permission to shine and share their unique perspective.
I love that. And it's amazing how such simple phrases can totally change the dynamic of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of it feeling like an interrogation, you're inviting them to share their world.
Exactly.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
So we've got our smiling, we've got our icebreakers, we're practicing active listening. Now the video also talks about role playing. Mm-hmm. And I find that so fascinating. How does that fit into all of this?
Well, role playing is like dress rehearsal, for real life conversations. It allows you to practice these techniques in a safe environment and helps to build your confidence and your fluency.
So it's like practicing your lines before playing to help you feel more comfortable and prepared when you're in the spotlight.
Exactly.
I love that.
And the video actually provides some examples of role playing.
Okay.
So you can really see how this works. They show a student striking up a conversation with another student in a coffee shop.
Right. Which is a very relatable situation for English learners.
It is.
When I watched that, I was like,
yeah.
Oh, I could actually do this.
I know, me too.
It made it seem so manageable and approachable.
Right. It demystified the whole process.
Totally. And I also like that they show role plays in different settings, not just like casual encounters. There's one with colleagues during a lunch break, which I think is so relevant for people who need to use English in like a professional environment.
Absolutely. It shows that you can use these techniques anywhere.
And in that one, they actually talk about things like hiking and cycling, which are those common interests that can help a conversation flow more easily.
It's a good reminder that finding common ground is key to rapport.
I think that's a great point to transition to the next part of our deep dive. So we've covered how to start a conversation, keep it going. But what about those trickier aspects? Like, how do you end a conversation gracefully? That's something I personally struggle with sometimes.
Yeah, ending a conversation smoothly is a real art. And it's something that Effortless English Zone does a beautiful job of addressing.
Okay, good, because I need all the help I can get.
It's all about finding that balance between being polite and respectful, but also signaling that you're ready to move on.
Okay, so it's like knowing when to exit the stage. It's like interrupting the performance.
Exactly.
And I'm really curious to learn how to do that with a little bit more grace and finesse.
Well, let's dive into that next. Ending a conversation well is like adding that final touch. It's like the final chord in a song. It needs to resolve smoothly and leave you feeling satisfied. A clunky ending can totally undermine all that rapport you've built up and leave the other person confused or maybe even offended.
Yeah, and I know from personal experience that ending a conversation awkwardly can leave me feeling flustered and self-conscious. It's like tripping over your own feet on the way out the door.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there. But luckily, ending a conversation gracefully is a skill that can be learned with practice. And the Effortless English Zone video provides some good tips, starting with the importance of using clear and polite closing statements.
Okay, but what?
Well, they suggest phrases like, "It was great talking to you," or "I've really enjoyed our chat."
Okay.
And I think these are simple, but really effective ways of signaling that you're ready to wrap things up while still expressing appreciation for the interaction.
You don't want to sound like you're rushing off or that you didn't enjoy the conversation.
Right. It's striking that balance between being direct, but also courteous.
Mm-hmm. And they also emphasize the importance of providing a reason for ending the conversation, such as, I have to get back to work, or I have another appointment. I think that's really key because it helps the other person understand that you're not just brushing them off.
Exactly. It shows respect for their time and helps to prevent any awkwardness or speculation about why you're ending the conversation.
Yeah, nobody wants to be left wondering, did I say something wrong? Or did they just get bored with me?
Exactly.
But what if you don't have a specific reason? Like sometimes I just feel like the conversation has run its course naturally, and I'm not quite sure how to disengage politely.
That's a great point. And the video actually addresses that too. They suggest using more general phrases like, I should let you go, or I need to get going.
Okay, I like those.
Yeah, they're still polite and respectful, but they don't require you to come up with a specific excuse.
Perfect. I'm adding those to my conversational toolbox. They're like all-purpose phrases.
Exactly. And just remember, it's always better to err on the side of honesty and politeness. A genuine, it was nice talking to you, but I need to head out now, is always better than some flimsy excuse.
Oh, for sure. I've definitely been guilty of using those flimsy excuses in the past.
Yeah.
And it usually just ends up making things more awkward.
I think we all have. Honesty is the best policy.
And you know what I really appreciate about this video is that it doesn't just talk about ending conversations in general. They actually delve into the nuances of ending different types of conversations.
Right, because there are different social cues, depending on the situation.
Exactly. So, for example, they talk about the specific challenges of ending phone calls, which can be tricky because you don't have those visual cues to rely on.
Exactly. You can't really see the other person's body language or facial expression, so it can be harder to gauge when it's appropriate to end the call.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like you're playing a game of conversational chicken, trying to figure out who's going to hang up first.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I've been there many times.
So to avoid that, what they suggest is using clear verbal cues to signal that you're ready to end the call. Like, well, it's been great catching up, but I should let you go now. So you're giving the other person a heads up,
Yeah, I like that.
so they can wrap up their thoughts and say their goodbyes.
Yeah, I like that. And they also address the complexities of ending conversations in like a professional setting. Like, how do you end a meeting or a networking event without offending anyone or seeming unprofessional?
It's like a whole different ballgame,
It is.
right? There's that power dynamic at play. And you want to be respectful of everyone's time and leave a positive impression.
Exactly.
So the video emphasizes being mindful of your tone and body language.
Yeah.
And using polite and respectful phrases like, thank you for your time, or it was a pleasure meeting you.
Right. And I like that they also stress the importance of ending on a positive note, if possible. So if you're ending a work meeting, you could say something like, I'm looking forward to continuing this discussion next week.
That's perfect. It keeps the door open for future interaction, while also signaling that the current conversation has come to a close.
Yeah. Now, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are times when ending a conversation can feel extra difficult. Like if you're dealing with someone who's super talkative, or maybe they tend to dominate the conversation.
Those can be tough.
They can be. I've definitely encountered those people who just have like an endless supply of stories and anecdotes. And it can be really hard to find a way to politely escape the conversation.
You feel trapped.
Yes.
Well, the video gives some strategies for these situations, like politely interrupting and redirecting the conversation,
Okay.
or setting some clear boundaries up front.
Okay.
So, for example, you might say, that's a fascinating story, but I'm afraid I need to run. I have another appointment. Or you could set a boundary at the beginning by saying, I only have a few minutes to chat before I need to leave.
Yeah. Setting those boundaries is so important. It's like you're politely letting the other person know, okay, this is the time limit for our conversation.
Right. You're not leaving it open-ended.
Exactly.
And remember, it's always okay to excuse yourself politely, even if the other person hasn't quite finished their thought. You don't have to sacrifice your own time and energy just to appease someone else's need to talk.
That is such a good reminder. It's so easy to feel obligated to keep listening, even when you're feeling drained or like you have other things you need to do.
It is. But remember, taking care of yourself is important too.
Yeah, self-care.
Self-care.
You know, after exploring all these nuances of ending conversations, I'm realizing it's about so much more than just saying the right words. It's about being mindful of the other person's feelings, respecting their time, and leaving a positive impression.
Exactly.
And doing all of that while also respecting your own needs and boundaries.
Exactly.
It's like this delicate dance of communication.
It is.
And I appreciate how the Effortless English Zone video breaks down those steps.
Yeah.
in a way that's both practical and insightful.
Yeah, they've really given us a roadmap.
They have. But of course, we all know that not all conversations are smooth sailing. Sometimes we hit those rough waters. You know, those difficult conversations that could be filled with tension, misunderstandings, and strong emotions.
Ah, yes. The dreaded difficult conversation.
Right.
But the good news is that even those challenging exchanges can be navigated with a little bit of grace and skill.
Okay, so tell me, how do we do that?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore next.
Okay, so we've talked about starting conversations, keeping them flowing, and even those tricky endings. But now, let's face it, not all conversations are easy breezy. Sometimes we have to wade into those murkier waters, the dreaded, difficult conversations.
Yeah, those conversations that can make your palms sweat a little bit, make your heart race. But the good news is that even those tough talks can be handled with grace and skill, just like the effortless English zone video demonstrates.
Okay, I'm all ears, because I think we've all been there, right? Where those difficult conversations feel like walking on eggshells. You're just waiting for things to blow up.
Exactly. And the video starts with a super practical tip preparation. It's like getting ready for a big presentation. You don't just wing it, you plan and strategize.
That makes so much sense, because when I go into a difficult conversation feeling unprepared, it's like walking into a dark room you don't know what you're going to bump into.
Exactly. So take some time to think about your goals for the conversation. What do you want to achieve? What are those non-negotiables, those things you absolutely can't compromise on?
Okay, so I'm clear on my own goals, but then there's the other person. What about their perspective?
That's where empathy comes in. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine their feelings and their concerns. This can help you approach the conversation with more understanding and less judgment.
Okay, so preparation and empathy, check. What else can we do to make these conversations less daunting?
Well, the video emphasizes the power of I statements. Instead of blaming or accusing, which usually just makes things worse, focus on expressing your own feelings and experiences.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this, but I'm not always great at putting it into practice. Can you give me an example?
Sure, instead of saying you're always late, which sounds accusatory, try saying I feel frustrated when I'm waiting and you're late. See how that shifts the focus to your own emotions.
I see. That makes a big difference. It's less confrontational, more about expressing how I'm feeling rather than pointing fingers.
Exactly, and it invites the other person to do the same, to share their perspective without feeling attacked.
And of course, active listening is always crucial, even in difficult conversations.
Absolutely. It's tempting to just want to get your point across, but truly listening shows respect for the other person and can help you find a resolution that works for both of you.
But active listening can be hard, especially when emotions are running high. Any tips?
The video reminds us that it's more than just hearing the words. Pay attention to body language, tone of voice, and resist that urge to interrupt or jump in with your own defense.
Okay, stay present and really focus on what they're saying.
Exactly, and use phrases like, tell me more, or I understand, to show that you're truly engaged and trying to see their point of view.
Okay, so we've prepared ourselves. Mentally, we're using I statements, we're actively listening. But what if we still disagree?
That's when it's time to shift the conversation to problem-solving, brainstorm possible solutions together. Ask questions like, what would make you feel better about this? Or, is there a way we can both get our needs met?
So instead of getting stuck in a tug of war, we're working together to find a compromise.
Exactly. And remember, even if you can't reach a full agreement, you can still aim for understanding, acknowledge their right to their own opinion, and try to find some common ground.
It's about respecting each other, even when we don't see eye to eye.
And don't forget to end on a positive note. Even if the conversation was tough, thank them for being open to the discussion and express hope for a positive outcome.
So even if we didn't fully resolve the issue, we can still leave the door open for future communication.
Right, because maintaining that relationship is often the most important thing.
And they also give some specific advice for those extra sensitive topics like money or health issues.
Yeah, those can be really tricky. So they recommend choosing a time and place where both people feel safe and comfortable, and always approach the conversation with love and care.
It's about creating that atmosphere of support and understanding, even if the subject matter is difficult.
And remember, it's okay to seek outside help from a therapist or mediator if things get too heated or you feel stuck.
That's a good reminder that it's okay to ask for support when we need it.
Absolutely. So to wrap up this whole effortless English zone video, it's not just about giving you a set of rules. It's about giving you a framework for approaching any conversation with more intention and skill.
I love that it's like they've given us this amazing toolkit to help us navigate the ups and downs of communication in English and really in any language.
Exactly. And they leave us with a powerful message. Communication is a skill that can always be improved, and every conversation is a chance to practice and grow.
And that's so encouraging because it means we don't have to be perfect. We just have to be willing to keep learning and keep trying.
So go out there, start conversations, listen attentively, express yourself clearly, and face those difficult conversations with courage and empathy.
And remember, every conversation is an opportunity to connect more deeply with ourselves and with others.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the art of conversation.
And thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast. We'll see you next time.